this tank will surprise you at how outrageously good this tier 8 medium tank is from the German line, the Indian Panzer. And this is a vehicle that was one of those that I thought, it's not going to be very good. It's got no armour, it doesn't really have all too much of the other things that you'd expect a really, really great tank to have. But the Indian Panzer is almost perfect, and it was recently buffed, I say a couple months ago, I'd say now. But this vehicle, what makes it special? What is actually good about it? Well, it is fantastic in terms of the speed, the manoeuvrability, the flexibility, the actual main armament, and you're going to see that within the next 2 replays that we've got in this vehicle. And also the fact that you can be pretty stealthy with this thing and also get very, very good view range, which means you can combine actual damage and assistance damage to have some results like this that are just crazy and really, 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 really fun to actually be a part of. Now, I've recently picked up an Xbox Series X, so we're actually playing on that for one of the first times, and it's so much better to be able to play, because obviously the Xbox One, which is the thing I was playing with previously, had some very, very annoying FPS. So you're down at like 30 FPS and going from 30 to, I believe, 60 now. With the new versions of the consoles, it might even be 120, I'm not entirely sure, but the differences are massive. It feels so much easier to play. You're so much more accurate because you haven't got to predict kind of the frames. Yeah, it just feels so much nicer to play. But regardless of that, what we've actually been doing recently is performing way better. Now, I don't know if those are two linked, but yeah, I was definitely having an outrageous day when I was playing this vehicle. We averaged, I believe, like 4,000 damage in every single game I played in this tier 8, which was very, very, very nice to play. So yeah, I don't know what it was, but it just felt so nice. Now, one thing you're seeing here is that the alpha damage is really, really nice. They buffed it, it went from 240 all the way up to 280, so that is the average damage you'll deal, and also you reload in about 5 seconds, which means you're going to be able to push out damage really, really quickly, which means that not only will you be able to get damage, but you'll also be able to get assistance, and you can see that within this game that we've been able to retrack a lot of the opponents, we've been able to just harass, and we've also been able to pick up 2,000 damage so far. Now, we haven't picked up any assistance, but we don't necessarily need that right now. What we're focusing on is just trying to spot the opponents, or at least get a glimpse of them, or find out where the enemy team are predominantly at, so we can kind of predict what we need to do in the next game. So with 2,300 damage under my belt so far, and having kind of progressed into this position, which is very nice to begin with because you can get some shots onto a lot of these people that camp in this area, and also you can spot anyone that maybe took a little bit too long to be able to get up into this area, and you can catch them out in the open, which is lovely. What we've seen here is the enemy team kind of caught in a crossroads, or crossfire I should say even, and they can do one of two things. So they can either YOLO one flank, or they can try and deal with us. Now, at current pace, this Object 268 version 5 decided he was going to try and focus us, but unfortunately for him, he has got a load of tanks coming from all directions, and it's probably not going to be the case that he's going to be able to escape or win with the actual hit points he's got left on the vehicle. It's now a one shot for us. So one thing that we want to be careful of is not getting spotted, and talking about not getting spotted, we actually do get spotted. So it's not ideal, but this showcases that the tank is also very, very fast. You can see us doing approximately like 50 pretty much everywhere when you get up to top speed, and you can get up to top speed fairly well with this vehicle, which was something I loved as well. So it's all round such a great tank, especially if you've had any experience in World of Tanks. This will definitely feel like a vehicle that allows you to reach to your kind of upper potential, and actually it's a tank that I genuinely thought would be very mediocre, and it's completely not. It's actually really, really superb, and I guess it kind of showcases what the higher tier German vehicles or German medium vehicles will be like in World of Tanks console, being the Leopard PTA and also the Leopard 1, which is the top tier. Now we take a little snapshot on the WZ-111-5A and of course set him on fire, because why not? When you're having a nice game like this, you always love to see some extra luck. Now, up to this point, we've not taken a single hit, which is exactly what you'd expect from playing a tank like this. Trying to avoid any of the shells is way better than trying to test your armour, of which you have none. So that's kind of the key things about the vehicle, is that yes, it's perfect, it's really all-rounder, but it just doesn't get the armour model to be able to bounce anything, especially not in a top tier or a bottom tier game when you're playing up against tier 10s as the top tier tank. So you have to be very, very careful. You don't want to be getting caught out, but you also want to be aggressive enough so that you can continuously deal with the damage using the DPM of this vehicle. So what are we doing at this point? Well, I'm kind of getting a little bit greedy. I'm thinking, well, I've had 3.7k damage, maybe we can get some more. And you see us here, just aiming on the move. Unfortunately, you actually bounce off of the side of the VZ's turret, but we do spot a lovely enemy T124 that's kind of sat out in the open, and we can get some shots into him. I'm going to showcase one thing that you can do to T124s if you don't already know, and you're facing them in lower tier vehicles and you're thinking, oh, it's going to be a pain to actually pen them. Well, it doesn't have to be. You can see here what we're aiming for is that engine deck, the rear of the tank, because the rear is actually really, really bad, and no matter whether they're angling really, really well, if you can actually hit that kind of back end, you're going to be able to pen. Now, granted, we are firing premium rounds at this point, but it's not necessarily something that you have to do. So with the IS-4 moving down, and actually now him looking straight at us, unfortunately, well, luckily for us he misses, but unfortunately for him he does. But yeah, we've got to be a little bit careful, and you can see here the IS-4 just being a little bit of a pain in the backside. The VZ then comes out, we bounce off of him, should have fully aimed that, he puts 2 rounds into us, taking us down to a 1 shot. And that's the problem with the Indian Panzer, is that if you do come up against these high tier vehicles, you're not going to fare all too well against them. And at this point I'm thinking I don't want to get hit by the Turan, because that is definitely a fast way to end up back in the garage, and we do not want that. So we're going to go and try and support anyone else who will be hopefully going after this IS-4. The Turan then spots me because he's in a really annoying position. Luckily he's behind the ridge line, so he couldn't quite get a nice shot, and then the GW100 lands a very nice little present on top of the Turan, taking him out from full health all the way down to 0, because artillery should be able to do that. And then we come in and sweep up the floor sweepings with the IS-4 there, picking up like 100 damage or something. But a very, very nice result in a top tier, well, bottom tier game up against tier 10s. 2033 base experience, which was a very good game in the Indian Panzer, picking up 4,682 damage and 4 enemies destroyed. Really, really good, using times 5 XP boosters, and also the double XP event was on, so we picked up 19,000 XP in that game, which was ridiculous, and I highly recommend playing whenever we have XP events and grinding through some of the tech tree tanks. You may not have got the tier 10s on. So you might be thinking, how quickly can you pick up damage in this vehicle? And this replay is going to showcase how much of an influence you can have on the game, and also in moving forward the game into areas that maybe other tanks would struggle with doing. This one is a top tier gameplay, and unfortunately it is a top tier gameplay, because actually I feel like this tank plays far better when you're coming up against tier 10 games. Now, not from a perspective of being able to guarantee a win or being able to influence the game, but from a perspective of trying to get the most damage or have the most satisfying games, then yes, being bottom tier is actually one of my favourite things, because you are the underdog at that point, but the tank is good enough so that you can impact the game with such a tank that is 2 tiers below, and people kind of disregard. Now, yes, I wasn't paying attention at the beginning, always pay attention when driving, but one thing that we do in this game is decide, well, it's a tier 6 game, or bottom tier is tier 6, we're in obviously the tier 8, we should be the one on the front line, and of course, starting the game, we pick up an ammo rack on the enemy MT25, because why not get 590 damage at the beginning of the game. You're seeing here the enemy Tiger 1, or the hammer, or the Tiger 1 hammer, whatever you want to call it. Basically, he's pushed up quite aggressively. My friendly IS is deciding that he's he obviously can't drive either and tries ramming me up the backside, because why not? But we've got the hammer here, and the IS decides he's just going off in, and I'm not going to let him throw away his hit points for nothing, so I decide to try and get a few shots in into this hammer, and of course we do manage to do that. The IS has lost pretty much all of his health for that manoeuvre, but nonetheless we don't mind because we can go after the M4, and of course managing to set him on fire is lovely as well. So at this point I'm thinking, well, I need to go in, I want to get some damage, I want to progress my game, I want to make sure that I'm not at the back when we're kind of in this scenario, and also we are losing at this point 11 tanks to 10. So we want to make sure that what we're doing is kind of recouping some of that damage that we may have lost, and we're going to do that on this Action X. I'm worried that artillery is going to be fully aiming over here, because you know what artillery's like, and basically no armor tanks. So we kind of stay a little bit further back, and we're going to try and put some rounds into this Carnarvon. You're seeing us place a couple in there, and yeah, from this point it's just a case of staying aware of what's around us. We've got obviously the M4 that was on our right, he's now been taken care of, so now it's just a case of mopping up whatever's left. We try and get some damage early on the ARL, should have fully aimed that one, we didn't manage to pen, so we fully aimed the next one and we get some damage. You should always do that, because it will guarantee you way more damage than trying to do it blind. But we then hit the Spic, and now we find a Jade Panther out in the open. We go for the kind of general area of the tracks and manage to track him at the same time. Then it's after the M6, which we managed to hit as well. And then the last vehicle alive is indeed the light tank, who is in our base. And granted that we are a medium tank, we should be able to go towards him. But don't worry, because the enemy artillery has it all covered anyway, or our friendly artillery I should say even. And yes, an epic victory, really quick one. I'm sure you'll see the time in just a second. I think it was about 4 minutes to be able to complete that game. It was a bit of a raffle stomp, to be honest, and picked up 3,561 damage, 5 enemies destroyed, and 1,638 base experience as well, for one of the easiest games of my life. Now I hope that this has showcased some of the key concepts of the Indian Panzer and why you should never, and I mean never, underestimate this vehicle, because it is so powerful in the right hands, and using it in the way it's intended as a mobile flexible tank. Hopefully this has showcased that, and of course let me know your comments on this vehicle. I am just utterly amazed at how good this one is. So yeah, thank you, and I hope you join me in some of these videos that are on screen right now showing similar sort of tanks. Goodbye.